Hello, Butler 1199. My name is Dan, and I'm the delegate from BH Call Intake, and I have just returned on this May the 4th from a surprise bargaining session. Um, we got the call, and so most of us showed up, and yeah, so we'll get into that. Before we do, real quick, number one, this is not an official 1199 communication. This is my thoughts and opinions about what I witnessed at bargaining session. And number two, this is not a replacement for talking to your delegate. Um, you have to talk to them, and where you put it in the contract that it'll be mandatory that you talk to them. I'm just kidding, but you should talk to them. So let's get into it today because I didn't know what to expect going into bargaining session today, and I think there's some stuff to talk about. So first, I will say that the management that we sat down with today, although they are the same people, uh, were significantly changed from the management that I, come to know and uh, begrudgingly tolerate. They were significantly more cooperative. It seems that they have dropped the practice of not getting coverage for delegates. They now are getting coverage for delegates to go to bargaining. This is good news. It makes it a lot easier to get bargaining sessions, which is what we told them from the start. Um, and so it seems that they have awoken from whatever dream they were stuck in and realized that it actually behooves them to try and get a contract. Um, I think a huge factor in that is, of course, the extreme amount of pressure that you all have been putting on them. That they no longer they now are starting to realize that actually there is a deadline, there is pressure on them, that you guys are not just going to cave, going to buckle. You're not going to just get pushed around and accept, the way that they've treated you. Um, and so they came much more cooperative, much less obstructionist. Um, but not we're not there yet, and I'll get into that. Another factor is that there is now, in some capacity, a federal mediator involved. So what does that mean? So federal mediators, it's very typical for them to get involved at this stage of bargaining. The same thing happened at this time with women and infants. Um, and they're just mostly there to help facilitate communication. They're they're not taking they don't really take one side or the other because they're not beholden to either side because they're a federal employee. You they're just there to try and help avoid a strike, come to a conclusion. So they just help facilitate communication because sometimes, well, oftentimes, uh, will say something to the boss and they just will refuse to listen. But if the mediator says the exact same thing, then they're like, oh, well, maybe we should consider this. And it's like, I don't know why it has to be that way, why they can't just take us at our word, but you know, that's management for you. Um, Very funny, though, learned a bit more about what's going on with the federal mediators. As some of you may know, basically all of them, except for 12, got fired in the country. Um, so there's like 12 mediators left for the entire country, which, you know, and also they are participating in a limited capacity. They're not allowed to travel from DC. They're stuck in DC or something, and they can't work any like overtimes, weekends or late or anything like that. So so they have to zoom in. They weren't here today because it's the weekend, but going forward, that's how they're going to be involved. I guess we'll just set them up in a laptop in the corner or something, and you know. But they're there. We didn't think any were going to be able to make it, so a slightly pleasant surprise. Um, as for the work that got done today, management came in with movement. They had, some movement on their proposals. mostly non-economic, stuff about like probation. They're willing to offer translations for the benefits packages, which is nice. We're trying to move them into sharing the cost of translating the contract. Um, they're still stuck on, the four separate contracts and a 4-year contract. We've tried to hammer it in today. That's not that 4-year contract is certainly not on the table unless they are willing to shell out an insane amount of money. What they're offering is still half, generously half of what women and infants got. Um, and yeah, so no, we're not there yet. But you know, some of these non-economic stuff we're making movement on. It's nothing. We're not throwing our hats in the air. Uh, but better late than never, I guess, is a good way to think about it. Um, they made some minor movements on healthcare. It's not even close to where we're looking, which is no cuts to healthcare. They still want the HOA to be the HSA to be dead on arrival. Um, they're not there yet. They're trying to say like they're not going to really talk about wages unless we talk about cuts to health and healthcare. I think this is more rhetoric than anything. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of pressure on them, and they started to realize that there's not really any pressure on us, that we are not afraid to fight for what we want. So I think they're just trying to feel like they are exerting pressure in some way. We'll see how serious they are about that. Um, the dental high plan has returned. They have withdrawn their proposal to get rid of the dental high plan. So, it's nice to see uh, that they are, like I said, getting to a position that they probably should have never had to begin with. But at least better late than never. That'll be my new line for today. Um, and they moved their position to get rid of all the opt-out bonuses to phasing them out over 4 years. Once again, still believe they're getting a 4-year contract. Um, this is it's such a it represents a tiny amount of money to them. They're I don't think that they're gonna die on the hill of the opt-outs. They can't. It's money that matters a lot to those people who get it, and matters basically, and it represents one millionth of the gross payroll of of the contract. So it's not where we need them to be, but I don't know, they're getting somewhere. It was the same. They were trying to go with this phase out model for I think, yeah, like the divorce coverages and stuff. So, you know, no real movement on wages. Like I said, they're trying to hold it hostage with cuts to healthcare. So we're still there's still a lot of distance to be covered, but we will be meeting tomorrow. They are now actually taking serious, getting bargaining sessions together. I think they're trying to retroactively back up the claim that they've always been taking it seriously, but they haven't. We know that. So I guess Ray Hall is unavailable, so they have rented out the Omni Hotel, which we are splitting the cost of, because we're not going to take a bribe. Um, we're unfortunately an honorable group of people, and it's not exactly going to be margaritas, mostly just a conference room and no amenities, but we will be off campus. So strike captains, stay in touch with your delegates as bargaining goes on. Um, we need to make sure that communication is flowing. We don't want them to try and pull any shenanigans while we're off campus. So stay tight. We will be having membership meetings on Tuesday throughout the day. Your delegates should be passing along information about what times a day believe they're scheduling 4 times a day on Tuesday. And the point of these is obviously, give some updates on how bargaining is going, and also to get to a lot of questions that members have about striking. What does it mean? What about this? What about that? So, these will be in preparation of a possible strike. And because we all need to be ready, but we know that people have questions and we want to answer them. So please show up to those meetings. And keep in mind that the pressure absolutely works. It is because of the fact that everyone is rock steady. There might be some hopeful movements in this, but those hopeful movements have been facilitated by pressure. So we can't let up on the pressure. We have to continue to stay strong. People should be, standing shoulder to shoulder. No one should be giving up on anything. We are we are beginning to move the ball. We're not there yet, and we have to keep it going, Butler. Um, so I hope you all, have a good rest of the weekend. A little is left, and we'll keep you updated. I should have another video out tomorrow night. Have a good one, Butler.